Hidden beneath the dense canopy of one of the most untamed jungles on Earth, the Amazon is not merely the green lung of the planet. It is an ancient memory, buried beneath damp soil and thousand-year-old roots, harboring truths untouched by the pages of history. Modern man calls it a primeval land. But to a few remaining indigenous tribes, it is a place once walked by the gods, a realm where the boundary between reality and legend has long since faded. Deep beneath the earth in present-day Ecuador, amid the Santiago jungle, lies a cave that has never been officially recognized on any archaeological map. Locals whisper its name only at night, Tejos. According to eyewitness accounts, within its depths lie vast underground chambers, housing metallic plates inscribed with unknown symbols, the decapitated skeletons of giants, and what some call a golden library, seemingly belonging to a civilization erased from human memory. Yet the most unsettling element isn't the artifacts themselves, but the question of why the world's most powerful forces, from the Vatican and the CIA to secretive religious and scientific institutions, have all sent agents here, only to retreat in silence. If this were mere fabrication, why the effort to hide it? And if it is truth, then who is keeping the secret? And why are they so afraid of its revelation? The story you are about to hear is not a conspiracy theory. It is a fragment of humanity's forgotten memory. Just real enough to provoke questions. And just elusive enough to keep every door sealed shut. For centuries, deep in the heart of the Amazon, where sunlight is but a fading memory, there has echoed a legend. A whisper carried through the breath of tree roots and the rustling of jungle winds. Of a gateway leading down into the sacred earth. A place where no mortal could survive unless chosen to enter. That is the Tejos Cave, named by Westerners after the Tejos birds that dwell in the cave's darkness. But to the indigenous Shura people, an ancient tribe dwelling in isolation along the Ecuadorian frontier, this is no mere cave. It is a primordial gate, to the final dwelling place of the gods. To the Shura, Tejos is not an invitation to explore, it is a warning. They tell of those who entered and never returned. And of others who came back, with glazed eyes, as if sleepwalking, and never spoke again. An old legend, passed down by tribal elders through countless generations, speaks of this. There was a time when the sun did not dwell in the sky, but beneath the earth. There, our ancestors carved what they saw, through fire, through stone, through metal. But mankind betrayed the vow. And so, the gods sealed everything away, hiding it in the deep, where no one dares utter its name. The entrance to Tejos is invisible to the eye. It lies hidden in sheer cliff crevices, cloaked by such dense forest cover that even modern aerial scanners struggle to detect it. To reach it, one must wade through the wild, serpent-like currents of the Santiago River. Navigate with ropes braided from native tree bark. Descend through natural stone shafts, some plunging dozens of meters, where light itself seems buried with the memories of prehistory. From below rises only the cry of the Tejos birds, sightless creatures that fly by night, regarded by the Shura as keepers of forgotten souls. The air within is uncanny. Cold, yet not damp. Silent, yet not dead. There is something, like a different stream of time, flowing quietly beneath one's footsteps. Those who made it deeper recount that the cave opens into angular corridors, so perfectly squared that they could not be natural, leading to vast chambers like assembly halls. No limestone. No mud. Only a haunting emptiness. Some among the Shura believe that Tejos was once a sacred site, where knowledge was passed down from gods to the first humans. They say, whoever reads the symbols of the stone library, shall awaken the soul within themselves that time has forgotten. And for that reason, no one is allowed to enter at will. For within it lies not only truth, but also the remnants of unforgiven sins. Strangely, despite the lack of official recognition, numerous archaeological teams, military groups, and even religious institutions have secretly attempted to reach this cave. And stranger still, nearly all of these expeditions either failed, or were abruptly halted. Why? Could it be that they could enter? But someone does not want them to discover what lies within. Throughout modern history, countless daring expeditions have been immortalized in books and headlines, adventures where men conquered Everest, touched the frozen heart of the South Pole, or crossed the blazing Sahara. But there is one journey that has almost been erased from public memory. A journey absent from archaeological textbooks, unspoken in classrooms, unacknowledged by academic institutions. It is the journey of an unusual man, János von Morics. He was not a trained archaeologist. He represented no government, no university, no well-funded institution. He carried no prestigious title, held no degree, received no million-dollar grant. And yet, he is believed to be the first person to have entered the Teljos cave and returned alive, carrying within him something that could not be explained in words. Born in Hungary, Morics lived a life shaped by intersections of cultures. After World War II, he left Europe for South America, not in search of fame, but in pursuit of something older than the idea of nations itself. In Ecuador, he learned the native languages. He lived among the Shure people. And over time, he was accepted as one of their own. This rare trust opened a door to ancient stories, tales never shared with outsiders. Among them, the legend of an underground metallic library. What Morics described after his first journey into Teljos defied every known archaeological record. A man-made cave system, with stone walls polished as smooth as mirrors. Vast halls, lined with square stone platforms like ancient council chambers. Hundreds of metallic plates engraved with unknown symbols, not Latin, not Greek, nor any known script. Remains of strange beings, over 2 meters tall, 4-fingered, with rib structures unlike any human anatomy. And yet, oddly enough, he brought back no photographs. No drawings. No physical artifacts. Only his testimony, and an unmistakable look in his eyes when he spoke of what he had seen. Then, the unexpected happened. Instead of writing a book or selling his story, Morics filed a legal claim with the Ecuadorian government, declaring the cave and its contents an ancient heritage site that must be protected from those seeking profit. He even wrote directly to the president of Ecuador, demanding a ban on any military or resource exploitation in the area, unless granted by his express permission. This raises a difficult question. Would a man chasing fame choose legal silence over public glory? And if he was simply delusional, why did the most powerful organizations take interest in the cave he spoke of? The story grew murkier when the famed author Erich von Däniken, known for his ancient astronaut theories, published an account of Teljos in his book, laced with sensational details far beyond what Morics had claimed. The world stirred. But Morics remained silent. Only when pressed by journalists did he finally say, "Most of what Däniken wrote is fiction. But the core of the story, that place, that cave, is absolutely real." Even more curiously, after being repeatedly denied funding by academic circles, Morics still returned to the cave, this time with a new witness, Julio Goyen, an Argentine explorer respected in the underground archaeology community. On that journey, only 2 dared venture deep into the cave. And upon returning, Goyen, a man with no connection to conspiracy, publicly affirmed, "I saw something that archaeology has no language to describe." With that, Morics' testimony was no longer a lone voice. It became the first piece of a buried maze of truth. Morics never sought validation. Nor did he chase profit. According to bank records, he was financially well off. The only thing he longed for was a truth that humanity had chosen to forget. And if he truly lied, then why did global powers, from the CIA, the Vatican, to corporate mining giants, all eventually find their way to Teljos? When a nameless man claims to have discovered an ancient treasure, people laugh. When a second voice confirms the story, skepticism begins to crack. But when the world's most powerful institutions quietly step in, all laughter turns to a chilling silence. Following Morics' account, the Teljos cave became a silent epicenter, not marked on travel maps, not announced by academia, yet it quietly ignited a chain reaction few would notice. The first to show public interest was the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, commonly known as the Mormon Church. According to their belief, the prophet Joseph Smith was guided by the angel Moroni to a sacred, golden book, hidden in a secret location until mankind was ready for the truth. And in an eerie coincidence, near the Teos region lies a village named Morona, where native traditions curiously align with Mormon prophecy. An expedition, presented as archaeological research and funded by the church, was quickly organized. To the media, they were scholars in search of truth. But to the local tribes, they were outsiders, men with eyes that seemed to seek something far greater than mere faith. But the Mormons weren't alone. According to declassified documents from later decades, the CIA had dispatched undercover agents disguised within archaeological teams to Ecuador between 1968 and 1976. Leaked sources even suggest their true mission wasn't geology, but a hunt for ancient alien-linked artifacts, possibly connected to technologies the Nazis were rumored to have discovered during World War II. In fact, as far back as the 1930s, the Ahnenerbe, the Nazi occult division, had conducted preliminary expeditions near Teos, their goals never publicly disclosed. Could it be that shadow powers had long known of Teos, while the world was never allowed to know? The most startling moment came in 1976, when Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon, was listed among participants in a major Teos expedition. The question still echoes. Why would a symbol of American space exploration take interest in a subterranean cave in South America? No official answer was ever given. And curiously, Morich himself did not join. He had refused, citing increasing government control over the operation. In his place, Julio Goyen led the team, joined by elite British cavers, military engineers, and high-tech surveying equipment. 3 weeks underground. They returned with a detailed 3D map of the cave system. Many of its features aligned with Morich's earlier descriptions. But, there were no artifacts. No metal plates. No golden library. No giant skeletons. Nothing. And after that, all expedition records were sealed. Armstrong never spoke of it again. Morich once said, "They didn't come to discover. They came to possess." Throughout his life, Morich repeatedly rejected large grants from international organizations, because they always came with strings of control. He understood. Once the key was handed over, the secret would be buried forever, beneath layers of classified ink. Then came the Vatican, the most powerful religious entity on earth. They made no public comment. They sent no official investigators. But through diplomatic channels, they quietly requested that the Ecuadorian government restrict all excavation activity in the Teos region. Why would a European church take interest in a cave buried in a South American jungle? Why would the CIA, Nazi occultists, NASA, the Mormon Church, and the Vatican, entities seemingly at odds, all converge on the same unverified location? Perhaps, because this is not merely an archaeological site. It is a knot in human history, where truth and deception intertwine, and where every power wants to be the one holding the thread. While most of the world dismissed the Teos cave as the leftover echo of a fictional tale, deep within the Ecuadorian jungle, some fragments of truth continue to be passed down, whispered, like a nameless ritual shared between man and a memory long buried. One of the strangest pieces in this entire puzzle wasn't found in any book, but in an unpublished handwritten manuscript, believed to be by Janos Morich himself. Discovered years after his death in a duplicate set of local archives. In this document, Morich described one specific descent. A journey into what he believed was the deepest level of the cave system, which he referred to as the central chamber of the underground library. At a junction marked by massive spiral-stacked stone blocks, he entered a chamber unlike anything he had ever seen. A colossal hall, without any apparent light source. Yet the walls and ceiling emitted a gentle golden glow, as though the very rock were luminescent. According to Morich, the light wasn't harsh or dazzling. It seemed to seep into one's vision. allowing objects to be seen clearly, but without casting shadows. On the stone walls were hundreds of metal plates. Not carved into the rock, but seemingly fused with it. As if placed there by a technology that did not belong to any known age. He wrote. They did not shine like gold. Nor feel cold like steel. Nor were they light like aluminum. They felt alive. When I touched one, there was a moment, fleeting, where I felt a vibration. Not in my ears, but in my consciousness. One plate bore a symbol resembling an eye, formed from 3 concentric circles, with spiraling rays converging inward. At the center was a shallow depression, like a pupil carved into stone. Moritz observed that when the glowing walls illuminated this eye, it cast a reverse shadow. Not behind the object, but projecting forward, into the viewer's space. He called it the inverted eye, and believed it to be the key to decoding the entire language of the civilization that once thrived here. I could not understand the characters, he wrote. But I felt a rhythm in their arrangement. Like a silent song meant only for the mind. Moritz came to believe that these metal plates were not mere inscriptions, but instruments of consciousness transmission. A kind of language without words, activated only when the reader's inner frequency aligned with the energy encoded in the symbols. He hinted that after hours inside the chamber, he began to hear a low, continuous hum. Its source unclear. It didn't cause pain, but it stopped his watch. Even his compass spun erratically. Was this a hallucination caused by low oxygen? Or evidence that the cave harbored a unique magnetic field? Perhaps even a structure intentionally designed to disrupt modern instruments. Moritz also recounted endless corridors that twisted strangely, with every left turn expanding space in unnatural ways. He marked his path with small stones. But on the return, the stones had either vanished, or been moved. He began to suspect the cave was shifting. Or worse, that the space itself was not fixed, but alive in some way. I felt I was walking in circles, he said. But when I turned around, every wall was unfamiliar. As if I had entered a dimension woven from my own mind. Upon his return to the village, the Shure tribal chief, who had once granted him access to the cave, spoke only one sentence. You have seen what is not meant for those with a name. And from that day on, every door closed. No one in the tribe would speak to him about the cave again. No one agreed to guide him back. Some believe this was an ancient warning ritual, a way to restrain those who trespass sacred boundaries. Others suspect he had simply come too close to something that must not be awakened. Moritz never published these writings. The manuscript was unsigned, lacked any formal validation, and was never acknowledged by the scientific community. And yet, precisely because of that, it raised unsettling questions. If it was a fabrication, why didn't he publish it and seek fame? And if it was real, who made him carry that silence to the grave? Does a hidden library truly lie within Teos? Or is it all the projection of a mind haunted by humanity's forgotten past? We may never know. But perhaps it is the silence of those who entered that speaks the loudest truth of all. In the heart of Cuenca, Ecuador, inside a modest little church called Maria Auxiliadora, an Italian priest, Father Carlo Crespi, quietly became the gatekeeper to a mystery that far surpassed the bounds of church doctrine. Wearing a simple cassock, with a gentle smile and eyes that seemed to carry a weight beyond words, Father Crespi devoted over 50 years of his life not only to tending souls, but to collecting fragments of a forgotten civilization, one absent from every known history book. Crespi was not an archaeologist. He was not a treasure hunter. And yet, beginning in the 1920s, he somehow became the recipient of hundreds of strange metallic artifacts, many of them made of gold, brought to him not for sale, but for safekeeping. by the Shure and other native tribes living along the fringes of the Amazon jungle. It wasn't barter. It was something closer to a ritual of trust. A transfer of responsibility. The meaning of which perhaps no outsider has ever truly grasped. These objects were so anomalous that many modern scholars labeled them impossible. Among them were golden plates inscribed with star charts depicting constellations like Orion and the Pleiades, with a precision rivaling modern astronomy. Sheets of metal etched with characters that matched no known script, alongside images of elephants, lions, and winged beings, creatures never known to exist in Latin America. Other pieces showed pyramidal structures, energy conduits, and symbols so strange they raised a haunting question. Were these remnants of a prehistoric global civilization, possibly linked to Egypt, Mesopotamia, or even, somewhere not of this earth? Why did indigenous people trust a foreign priest with such sacred items? And why did Crespi himself choose to hide them in a small locked room behind the church, a room only he had the key to? The mystery deepened in 1962, when a mysterious fire consumed much of his vast collection. Some called it an accident. Others whispered that unknown men had intervened beforehand, removing the most significant artifacts. What remained, mostly bronze or lesser value alloys, was later quietly removed from Ecuador by the Vatican. But the story didn't end there. Before his death in 1982, Father Crespi is said to have confided in a few trusted individuals. There exists an ancient tunnel system connecting Cuenca to the Tellos cave, where the true treasure still sleeps. A whisper, as though echoing from another world. Suggesting that what he held was only the surface of a far deeper, older, and more dangerous map than anyone had imagined. Today, what remains of Father Crespi's collection is housed in a small museum at the Salesian Polytechnic University. But no one knows which artifacts are real, and which have been forged. Some are confirmed replicas. Others are rumored to have been swapped. And a few, according to a former Salesian seminarian, were seized by higher authorities, classified, and locked away forever. Why did the Vatican care about strange metal sheets from an unnamed culture? Why would a humble priest become the keeper of the Amazon's deepest secret? Or more truthfully, was he ever the keeper? Or was he, the chosen one? It is a question that may never need answering. But for those who've stood in that little chapel in Cuenca, gazing at the photograph of Father Crespi framed in silence, there is a flicker. A quiet burning in the soul. A truth buried. And a voice still calling from beneath the earth. The Metal Library, a name that feels like a cryptic code from prehistory, does not simply challenge modern science with its alleged existence. It opens the door to an even greater question. Who, or what, could have possessed the knowledge and capability to leave behind a treasure of wisdom so far beyond human comprehension? The engravings on the metal plates depict not only bizarre symbols, but characters that have never appeared in any known ancient writing system. They are neither Mayan nor Egyptian. Nor do they resemble any known pre-Columbian language. Instead, they appear to be a completely isolated linguistic structure. One with no phonetic correlation to any analyzed script. Theory 1, a lost Amazonian civilization erased from human memory. Just as the existence of the Sumerians or pre-Incan kingdoms was once doubted. This theory suggests that a brilliant civilization once thrived deep within the uncharted heart of the Amazon. Unexcavated. Forgotten. They left no cities. No tombs. Only knowledge. A final legacy, perhaps a buried warning, in the form of a metal library. And then, they vanished without a trace. Theory 2, a prehistoric global civilization that crossed oceans before Columbus. Independent researchers such as Graham Hancock and Eric von Daniken have long asked. If the metal library contains depictions of animals never native to South America, or symbols strikingly similar to those found in ancient Egypt, could this be evidence of a prehistoric global civilization? A world-spanning empire that existed before the Great Flood, whose fingerprints appear in many distant corners of the earth. Some metal plates reportedly feature 5-pointed stars, winged beings, and disc-shaped objects, symbols disturbingly familiar to those who subscribe to the ancient astronaut theory. And if we momentarily set aside modern scientific bias, we must ask: why do these same motifs appear in Sumerian myths, in Egyptian temple art, and now, allegedly, in the Amazon? Theory 3, beings not of this earth. There is one detail that cannot be ignored. Many of the metal plates were said to be unnaturally light, yet indestructibly strong, resistant even to modern tools. Witnesses like Morich and the accounts surrounding Father Crespi describe plates that emitted unusual light or generated magnetic anomalies. Could they have been forged from non-terrestrial materials? And if so, who brought them here? According to believers, the metal library may be a data repository, not human in origin. A kind of extraterrestrial knowledge center. Intentionally hidden in Earth's most impenetrable region, the Amazon rainforest. To safeguard it from interference until humanity matures enough to receive it. Theory 4, time itself was bent. A bolder theory proposes that the library doesn't come from the past, but from the future. A form of backward transmission in the flow of time. A desperate attempt to warn or teach past generations before a global catastrophe. Much like the fabled Atlantean tablets in Plato's myth. The metal library could be the last effort to preserve light before the darkness of history descends. But all these remain only theories. There is no publicly verified physical evidence. Those who claim to have seen the artifacts have been discredited, vanished, or died under strange circumstances. Most of Father Crespi's collection was stolen or disappeared without explanation. And the Teos cave itself, believed to be the repository of the library, has since been sealed off. Accessible only to military-supervised expeditions. This leads many to believe that the real answers do not lie in what has been revealed, but in what has been deliberately hidden. And so we ask: why would the Vatican, the United States, and military institutions all take special interest in a cave buried deep in the Ecuadorian jungle? A place with no apparent strategic or economic value? Perhaps those seeking the metal library were never intending to share it with the world, but to seal it away. Perhaps, the Amazon was never meant to be a place for humans to enter and extract, but rather, a gate, one that beckons, but never fully opens. It is the living memory of the earth. A vine-draped brain where the oldest truths still whisper. Through decaying soil and the mist that hangs like forgotten sorrow. The Teos cave, with its metallic library, mysterious engravings, and the quiet interventions of forces beyond religion or politics, is but a single fragment of a map humanity has yet to finish drawing. A trace, perhaps, left on purpose. What compels us to pause and reflect is not merely the fact that every photograph, document, or piece of evidence regarding this metal library mysteriously vanishes after it surfaces. It's the unnerving pattern. Priests, military officials, even figures tied to NASA, the Vatican, and the British government, have all ventured there in secret, only to return in silence. Not one of them ever truly disclosed what they saw. Could it be that someone, or something, has deliberately prevented humanity from accessing a different history? One not written by the victors, but engraved in metal, by those who disappeared? Or perhaps, as some fringe archaeologists have long proposed, the true treasure inside Teos is not physical at all. It is a warning, a form of knowledge left behind not by the triumphant, but by civilizations that reached the pinnacle of advancement, only to destroy themselves. What you've just heard does not seek to convince you, nor force belief upon you. For truth, if it exists, always dwells beneath the fog of doubt and fear. But if the day ever comes when the Amazon recedes, when sunlight floods its heart and ancient stone doors crack open once more, the real question will not be, what will we find? But rather, are we ready to know? Because sometimes, the power of truth lies not in what we discover, but in whether we are brave enough to accept what we've seen as something meant for mankind, or something that never belonged to us at all.